Hopefully we fixed the camera lag and the video lag and all of that stuff. Hello and welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel and to our live stream Q&A part 1. Every Friday and Saturday we answer all of your questions regarding history and social studies, spending an hour with you here on YouTube. Usually we go over to Instagram at 7 o'clock, but that's not going to happen today. But we've got our live streams Fridays and Saturdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I answer all of your questions related to history and social study. And then on Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern is the live stream lecture. So yes, we're better. That's good to hear. So anyways, yes, for the next hour, I will be answering all of your questions about history and social studies. And we'll say actually about 55 minutes because we did about 5 minutes on the other live stream and then had connectivity problems and things like that. But we are back and ready to go. What do you think of Napoleon's bleeding ulcer? I don't know much about it. I'm sure it plagued him. People had ulcers. It wasn't an uncommon thing to have wounds like that, especially back then. I was not on a date with Woodrow Wilson. Stop asking. Yeah, let's see. Let's see what kind of questions we get, what type of history you would like to discuss. If you like and enjoy history, consider liking and subscribing, becoming a friendly neighborhood historian. It's as easy as that. What was the political landscape of Russia and America like at the time of Alaska sale? Does modern Russia look at the sale with regret, seeming like that land would be advantageous for them? They didn't really think that... The Russians really didn't think they could go any further with Russian America, Alaska, when they sold it in 1867. And while a lot of people considered it to be a mistake by the Americans, the Russians desperately needed the money to help kickstart the Industrial Revolution. They were desperately behind the French, the British, and the Americans when it comes to industry. So Tsar Alexander II decided to sell their foreign territories to kickstart his continual industrialization of Russia. They were building the Transcontinental Railroad, so it became very important for the Russians to industrialize. And that was one of the ways that they industrialized. They funded that through selling Alaska. So they really didn't see any need to hold on to Alaska. Britain had Canada. The United States had the Pacific Northwest. There was really nothing threatening Russia. The expansion didn't make sense. Alaska really wasn't much for them, so they sold it. Originally, this was considered a huge mistake for the Americans, but discovering gold, coal, oil, wood, all of the natural resources about that vast land of Alaska, it's the largest U.S. state by land, has obviously made it seemingly a pretty good investment, a pretty good win for the Americans. The Russians do not seem to look back on it with any sort of consternation or regret. So, the bleeding ulcer. Oh, yeah. I thought I heard about something where Napoleon had some sort of infection. But yeah, the Peninsular War... it's when Napoleon tries to basically force Portugal and Spain to follow him. He puts his brother Joseph in charge of Spain. The local Spanish and the local Portuguese are going to rebel against this. The Portuguese monarchs are going to flee to Brazil and live there for a while. The instability in the Iberian Peninsula allows revolutions to get started in Central and South America that will eventually lead to their independence. So that's what kind of happens there. What do you think? It really ruined. It was a long-term investment by Napoleon to continue to prop up his brother, and it didn't really work out for him that well. What do you think the best speech in American history was from a U.S. president? Oh, that's a great question, Hars. I love so many of the speeches the presidents have given, but I've got to go with an oldie but goldie, the Emancipation Proclamation. 2 minutes, nobody knew what he was going to say, absolutely nailed the slavery issue, absolutely nailed the sacrifice of the Civil War, and absolutely nailed the intention of the founding and the founding documents of the United States. It's one of the greatest speeches of all time. Welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel, where we do history in a friendly, neighborly manner. If you like history and social studies, like and subscribe and become a friendly neighborhood historian. Drop a topic or comment or question in the chat, and I'll be sure to answer it in a friendly, neighborly manner as soon as I can. Rodolfo, good to see you. Low-key, North America is an absolute gem when it comes to natural resources and mineral deposits and such. I love the continent so much. There's huge amounts of timber in the Northwest. There's huge amounts of oil in the South. There's corn, there's wheat, there's cotton. The amount of supplies and resources that America has, and when I mean America, I'm speaking of the North American continent, Canada, United States, and Mexico. It's just phenomenal. What do you think of Cicero? One of the greatest politicians, historians, and thinkers, and rhetoricians, as they called them. An excellent speaker, an excellent political leader, a man of high principle and character during a time when a lot of people in the Roman Republic were kind of out for themselves. Cicero remained on the straight and narrow, and for that he deserves a lot of credit. When he was killed, I believe it was Octavian who killed him, had him killed, he said, "Please don't leave a mess." How did banking work in the Roman Empire? Did monetary exchanges require lots of cold, hard coinage? Was there a way to wire money across the vast expanse of empire? I believe there was some sort of rudimentary system for that. They did have lines of credit and receipts and bills of sale. I mean, some of the earliest ancient human documents ever were receipts. So people have been keeping financial tabs and financial records for a long time. But there was a lot of cold, hard coinage. In fact, the continual devaluation of their currency led to the collapse of the Roman Empire eventually. But yes, they had banks, they had coinage, they had taxation, they had all these, a much more advanced monetary system than a lot of areas in medieval Europe. So it's quite fascinating. What do you think? I already answered that. Hello, Freshly, good to see you. Yes, whenever he used a sword, he used his pen. Pretty much, and the sword proved mightier than the pen. But we still love Cicero for so many reasons. Good to see you, T.I. Good to see you, Freshly. Elliot, keep talking. Oh, gosh. Yeah, well, say hi to him when he gets here, fam. If you guys have a question about history and social studies, if you want, if you like that kind of stuff, drop a topic, a question, a comment in the chat, and I'll be sure to address it and answer it as soon as I can. And yeah, if you like history, stay for the vibes, like and subscribe. We do this every Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. It's great to see so many people here. But yeah. And he said, come here, soldier. There's nothing proper about what you're doing. At least cut off my head properly. Exactly. And yes, please like and subscribe. Otto, good to see you. Inflation, low birth rates, barbarian invasions, the inability, corrupt leadership, overextension of resources and land power absolutely killed the Roman Empire, Jimbo. Remember the Alamo? The cry used at the Battle of San Jacinto by Sam Houston and his folks to lead the Texas rebels to victory against Santa Anna after the massacre at Alamo. You should have live streamed the peace deal. Oh, that would have been fun. But that's going to take like 6 or 7 hours, and I don't know if it's even going to be a peace deal. We'll see. I need to know. Monier, Archer. I'll go with Monier. William, good to see you. Crusades, bad or good? There's a lot of horrible and terrible things, massacres of Jews, Muslims, and other types of Christians that the Crusaders promulgated. The First Crusade seems to be the only justified one in that it was successful in retaking Jerusalem from the Muslims, securing safe passage for the Christians, and establishing the Crusader states. It's hard to justify the other Crusades. None of them really worked well. The Fourth Crusade was an absolute disaster, but led to the destruction, to them sacking Constantinople and killing a bunch of other Christians. It's pretty crazy. The Irish saved Christian civilization during the Dark Ages. Yes, the monastery system was extremely important for the Irish, and the monks there maintained many of the ancient documents and customs and traditions that would eventually become more in fashion during the Enlightenment. And yes, Trump and Putin about to talk. We'll see what happens there in Alaska, in Anchorage. What do you think the most important war in U.S. history was? And without a doubt, it's the Civil War. And Magnus, I can read you. I don't know what your question is, so... thank you, Muid. I do really love this shirt. It's a great shirt from a good friend of mine. But yeah, let me see here. Was Charlemagne the real first significant conversion of the Germanic barbarians to Christianity? How did the Germanic tribes who sacked Rome end up converting? Some of them had already converted to the Arian form of Christianity, which denied the divinity of Jesus, which was considered to be heretical by traditional Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox Christian standards. But basically, many of these missionaries had already made it to Gaul and to Germany, and so a lot of these barbarians had already become Christians and had some form affiliation with Christianity, although many of them remained pagan, and many of the pagans were forced to convert when Charlemagne conquered their regions, the Low Countries, large segments, pretty much all of Germany. That was what was the final nail in the coffin for paganism for a lot of those people. And it was Octavian, Mark Antony, and Lepidus who wanted Cicero killed, although Octavian tried to defend him. Oh, that's interesting. I personally think that George Bush's Bullhorn speech was the best one. It's a good speech. Yeah, but I mean, when you consider the president, when you consider the magnitude, Lincoln's speech, Emancipation Proclamation still wins. India's going to save you both. I'm okay. I don't need to be saved, Rajesh. But I do love India. Who doesn't love India? Fascinating country, beautiful history. You would love my video on the Varna system that I did where I explained exactly where the caste system and Hinduism come from. I am not Claudio. Only Allah is true God. Jesus is a fake who did nothing good. Convert to Islam, brother. That's funny. Islam doesn't seem to think Jesus was a fake. They call him a prophet and believe he was the Jewish Messiah. So you need to brush up on your Islam, my dude. Have you ever heard the song? No, I have not. Can you do a Halo Reach campaign playthrough? I've been thinking about doing a video game stream, maybe on Twitch or Discord, where I play a video game while talking about historical facts. So yeah, I'll probably do something like that, but probably not Halo. Probably something a little more historical, a Sid Meier Civilization-like thing. We'll see. We'll figure out what that looks like. I need to get a better laptop, and then I can start streaming with you guys. How much do you know about Indian history? I'd like to think a lot, especially for a Westerner. Not a huge amount, but a lot. P4, hello. Good to see you. I'm waving back to you. Was it wrong to start the war against Vietnam? The Vietnamese seemed open to the idea of communism becoming the ruling government, and the United States wasn't okay with that. However, after the French left, there was a division between the North and the South, and the Viet Cong, with their North Vietnamese allies, invaded the South. So in some ways, the Americans felt that they were acting in the same spirit as they had during the Korean War, and in other ways, they certainly were not. The governments they set up in South Vietnam, were totally just, this basically allowed militaristic dictatorships, corrupt politicians, one that they actually had killed. Okay, I don't know who Hyun Jin is, but I hope he's good looking. Yeah, Charles V is interesting. Ended up not being nearly as impactful as he thought he would be. I'm actually reading Cicero's On Morals at the minute. Good read. Well, yes, Jimbo, and I love you. I think that's Nietzsche in your profile picture. Yeah, I love me some Cicero. Where does it say in the Bible that Jesus is the Son of God? Many places in the New Testament say it. Total War is a good one. I love the Total War games, especially the old Total War games. What sort of an idiot do you have to be to give up your sword of power and there wasn't a faction trying to out him? He felt he had failed. He gave it up because he believed he hadn't done the duty that he was supposed to do. That's why Charles V abdicated. And he really wasn't in charge of Germany the way he thought he was. How close financially are you to that laptop? Not going to say anything. Christ as in Jesus and Christianity are so fascinating to me, this small outpost in the Roman Empire. Kind of. And yes, please follow our social medias, as my wonderful moderator, Hars, has put them in the chat. So yeah. A fraction of the population was Jewish, yet Rome becomes Christian, Germans become Christian, all to Europe it spreads like a wildfire. The Christians, despite their heavy persecution, had the highest birth rates, and as the birth rates began to diminish in the Roman Empire, the Christians outpaced them. So Constantine looked at the social and religious trends of his day, and that is one of the reasons I think he became a Christian, or at least became open to it. How much money do you need for the laptop? We can pitch in. Pitch in by joining, becoming a member, donating, watching all the videos and shorts on this channel, bringing us the ad revenue we need, commenting and liking on videos, commenting and liking on live streams. Whatever you can give helps. There's super chats, there's perks, there's definite benefits. If you become a member, you get you get early access, you get extra videos, all that stuff. We Muslim believe in Isa prophet, not Jesus. Yeah, Isa is Jesus. So Zinyak, you are wrong. You cannot, DJ. Do not do that again. Bad boy. Had the largest empire in European history up to that point, at least the largest continental empire. That was the only way he was threatened by even if they had destroyed. No, Suleiman was more powerful than Charles. Charles did not control the Holy Roman Empire like you like to think he did. Do you think the Alexander the Great? No. Or probably yes, Darcy. Actually, now that I think about it. Very common in that army in that era for the Greeks. Why not in the old Bibles though? Jesus said that God says Jesus is my son. It's not physics, it's religion, I guess. Huh? What do you mean the old Bible? You mean the Old Testament? You don't have Jesus in the Old Testament. Send you money? No. Do you think the UN's approach to make Pakistan ambassador of peace contradict with the fact that they knowingly shelter terrorists to fuel their economy? This is the ongoing problem between Pakistan and India, and it's definitely heating up. India has become far more nationalistic, far closer to China and Russia, and for the United States and its satellites in Europe, that is a worrisome thing. So the United States put in tariffs, they put in extra tariffs. It's basically at the level of sanctions right now, and then they also want and they're also warming up to the Pakistanis. So yeah. Do you know about the Northern Crusade? Maybe live stream lecture Sunday? I've heard about it. I don't know a huge amount about it. Are those the Crusades where they wiped out the different heretical groups in France? Do you think there was ever a time you love CK2 or CK3, you manage a family through the centuries? Yes, the Crusader Kings. I've heard those games are really good, Ricky. Thank you for the recommendation. Do you think there was ever a time in history where Jesus, yes, probably E-Dog. He was a human. I mean, yeah. No, Jesus is the Son of God. For a Christian, we Muslim only believe in Isa, a prophet. Yes, which is Yeshua, which the better Arab translation is Yasua, and That's Yeshua from the Hebrew, which becomes Jesus from Jesu in the Latin. So yeah. Was Cleopatra a baddie? Not only was she a baddie when it came to look, she was also extremely intelligent. She knew how to work the system around her. And despite the fact that her life story is often told in the premise of the men that surrounded her, like Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, her brother Ptolemy, and her son Caesarion, she was actually a capable ruler. She stood up for what was left of Egyptian independence and only allied with Rome when she absolutely had to. And rather than become a basic theater show, a sideshow for Octavian, she rather took her own life. What was the personal relationship like between Nicholas II and George V? The European monarchs at the outbreak of the Great War in the 1910s all had pretty good relationships with each other in the sense that they were cousins. They had intermarried for a long time. This has led to diseases throughout the different royal families, like Alexei Romanov, the heir to the Russian throne, having hemophilia that supposedly only Rasputin, the mad Siberian monk, could heal. That's where that legend comes from, although a lot of it is actually historical. You read some of the letters. They call Kaiser Wilhelm, who was one of their cousins, called Nicholas II Nicky, and he called him Willie. These are terms of endearment between cousins, not necessarily, despite the fact that they're potentates who are at the point of geopolitical explosion. And this was right leading up to the war. Even in 1914, they were still addressing each other in endearing and benevolent terms. But Nicholas and George were close, and they fought on the same side, and the British almost brought the Romanov family to England to save them from the Bolsheviks, but that didn't happen. Yeah, the Holy Roman Empire was very divided. He was an elected official. He did not have the power of even the French king. That is why the French king routinely beat him. That is why he resigned. He realized that the Protestant Reformation had just overturned so much of his power and influence and exposed it that he wasn't going to deal with it anymore. Yes, he was Carlos I of Spain and his son Philip II. That's actually where he had his power, and in Naples and in Austria as the Habsburg emperor. Or the Duke of Austria. They didn't call him, or did they call him? I don't know when they started calling the Austrian ruler the Emperor of Austria. I think that was at the time of Napoleon. But yes, basically this guy who ruled over Austria and Spain had his power there. His power in Germany was very divided. He was not the most powerful person in Europe. He relied on the Pope. He relied on his electors. He did not have a fraction of the power Suleiman did. Yes, Bilal, I try to be as fair and balanced as I possibly can be. I really appreciate you saying that. You may not like some of my videos about Islam, but a lot of Christians won't necessarily like all my videos about Christianity. I talk about history from hopefully a fair and balanced perspective, and I try to avoid bias and be objective as I possibly can, and it's impossible to talk about history and culture without talking about religion. Do you think 90% of the politicians are narcissistic? 90% is way too low. Christ is a title, Tamar, so I don't refer to Jesus as Jesus Christ usually unless I'm talking about Christian history, but Jesus of Nazareth is a better name for him in my opinion, because Yeshua ben Joseph would be the Hebrew. Jesus Christ implies that he is the Messiah. The Northern Crusade were a series by the Swedish against the pagans in Finland. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard a little bit about that. Not too much, though. Does reading more about history incline you toward atheism, or does that depend on personal beliefs only? No, Lacache, as I talk about on this channel all the time, that's a great question, by the way. I'm not an atheist. I do believe there is a God. I do believe that I sleep better at night knowing that there is some sort of divine being and some sort of capacity. I'm not going to explain how I believe that capacity. I don't share my religious beliefs. I try to be as objective as possible. Religion has done a lot of terrible, awful things, and a lot of awful, terrible things have been done in the name of religion without the religion actually approving it. Do you see the difference there? Sometimes it's the religion directly, and sometimes it's people blaming the religion when the religion actually didn't have anything to do with it, and it's not part of their teachings or ideas or how they were being represented at that time. So the real truth of the matter is, where was I with that? I think that religion is a catalyst for people to wield power and to affect their culture, affect the world around them. So no, I don't think that religion does that. My understanding of history does not incline me towards atheism. history is not anti-religious or irreligious. Religion is just one way people use to control each other. And if you want to look at societies in the 20th century and how atheistic and irreligious they were, look at the Nazis, look at the Soviets, look at the Maoist China. They had no problem with repressing and killing people, no more, sometimes in far greater ways than other societies before them had that were using religion. Yes, I'm not going to say Charles V wasn't powerful at all or isn't an important ruler. He certainly is, but I'm going to take Suleiman every time. Did Romans vacation to Egypt? Did they look in awe at the pyramids? Yes, and they said, well, that's nice. Ours is better. I recently turned towards atheism because it just makes more sense, as you're allowed to do. I know you are atheist, but Islam will dominate the world one day. Mark my days. You must have not liked what I just said. You saying that Islam is going to dominate the world, even if I'm an atheist, doesn't affect anything I just said. It doesn't change anything I've just said. It doesn't change the truth about the history of any religion, and one religion dominating the world or another religion dominating the world doesn't change the truth about history. Yeah, I don't think she was ugly. I think she was quite attractive. I think that was part of her, or at the very least, she was able to appear cosmetically beautiful enough to get what she wanted. She knew how sex sells. Have you looked at the Egyptian bureaucracy under Cleopatra? It's a work of art. I mean, truly bureaucratic, like worse than the sin that all Americans hate when it comes to cars, the government agency thing. You mean the DMV? Romans didn't build pyramids, yet they heavily copied Greek culture. Why are there no Roman pyramids? The Greeks really didn't build pyramids. Gods of Anunnaki are false gods. Those are supposedly the ancient celestial beings of Assyrian and Mesopotamian culture who were supposedly comparable to the great giants from the biblical accounts of the Nephilim, which could have been, some people believe, are ancient aliens. How do you like your eggs? Scrambled, usually. How vital was Mussolini's ignorance on the fall of the Nazis? I think Mussolini got him with the wrong crowd and basically just threw his law at him with the wrong person. If he had just left it alone, ALB, he would have been able to stay in power because they would have needed a right-wing or anti-communist. I don't believe Mussolini was really right-wing. I don't believe Hitler was right-wing. But they would have needed an anti-communist dictator, despot, to control a country and help the Europeans rebuild. They would have wanted Mussolini. The same way they let Franco walk, they would have let Mussolini walk. Zaidayo, thank you for joining us from Syria. We have people from all over the world, like my wonderful moderator Harry, who's from Great Britain. They didn't care how to build pyramids. Do you think the most I already answered that. People are arguing religion. How many beers is an excessive amount to have on a boat? How many? Really? Is there an excessive amount of beer? I didn't think that there was before today. Yes. Let me see. Loretto, hello. I usually like a 50-50 blend, so it doesn't, fair enough. Let me see. Can you tell me a quote from a founding father that talked about the importance of religion in a country? John Adams said a moral and religious people is necessary for the success of a country. There you go, Hars. Who is founding fathers? Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, James Madison, John Adams, the first few presidents of the United States, the people who helped America gain its independence from the British and then created the American constitutional system at the end of the 18th century. Let me see. I'm trying to catch up from the chat. If I haven't answered your questions yet, please be patient. I will get there. I hope you're enjoying the vibes. I hope you're enjoying your Friday. I hope you're enjoying starting your weekend with us. It's great to see you. Stryker, it's great to see you. I don't know. Gaihan, there's no way that they're going to get a ceasefire without Ukraine being there to agree to it, unless the U.S. and Russia are drawing up a ceasefire plan. I think they might be able to get a ceasefire, or they at least have an idea of what a ceasefire would look like. But really, until the Ukrainians are there at the table, which will probably be next week, I don't expect a ceasefire. I'm impressed with how quickly this has ramped up, though. Chad, please don't do that. Let me see here. Yeah, I try to be as fired up about history as I can. Yeah. I think religions, mythologies, and history together make beautiful stories and case studies to know our ancestors believe better. Yes, absolutely. You can't tell a story of history without culture, and you can't tell a story of culture without religion. You're going to have to study and understand religion when you are doing history. Do you think replacing politicians with AI in the future would be better for humanity? No. AI is not complex. It's smart. It has the ability to give you generic information at an incredibly fast rate, but it is not intelligent enough to solve complex problems. at least not right now. At least, complex geopolitical problems without platitudinous nonsense. Thoughts on Trump meeting with Putin? I think it's an interesting idea. I mean, I've seen people say that he's going to give Alaska back to the Russians. That's stupid. And I've heard people say he's going to end the war. That's also stupid. I think this is a preliminary idea. I think he basically wants to get the idea of what a peace deal could look like between Russia and Ukraine. I think he wants to try to put pressure on the Ukrainians to realize that this is happening with or without you. The Ukrainians did a huge drone strike. Check my news update later. I do news updates on this channel every day. The Ukrainians did a huge drone strike yesterday. The Russians are making further incursions. I think that the Ukrainians, if the Americans and the Russians agree to a framework of a ceasefire today, as Trump might call it, the concepts of a ceasefire today, I think that the Ukrainians will probably have to go along by the time we get to next week. We talk about history, social studies. People are asking about geopolitics. Dirt don't hurt. Dirt don't hurt. Thank you, Joe. When I see your answer to this, it has taken 7 minutes since I sent the message. I have to go by. Okay, whatever. Israel loves Russia. I don't think that's true. I stream every Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern is my live stream lecture. No, I smoke cigars, AGCC. By the way, it's Indian Independence Day. Oh, that's right, it is. Happy Independence Day to everyone from India. We have a lot of people who join us from India, and it's always great to see them in the chat. Did the Greeks get to Crimea ages back? They may have. I don't think so. What if Alexander the Great liked women instead of men? He did have a wife, but I'm pretty sure he was gay. Let me see here. Quantum computing is way more advanced and capable than AI. I've heard this before. Do you think history represents itself? You mean repeats itself? No, but I think it rhymes a lot. I think there's a lot of patterns that are similar, and if you pay attention, you'll see those patterns. Did you know there's a whole city in modern-day Turkey that stayed openly pagan well into the Middle Ages? Wouldn't be surprised. Love from Alaska, by the way. I heard the jet while I was at my job. Oh, well, that's awesome, D-Dog. Very cool. This isn't as powerful as I was making it out to be. Yes, it wasn't. What is the most fascinating piece of history for you? I'm a Russian historian, so I really love studying and learning about Russian history. Check out my Russian history series. Check out my Tsars videos. Check out I've got a bunch of stuff on Russian history. So, do you think history repeats itself? I already answered that. Trying to catch up to the chat. I'm sorry if I haven't gotten there. I am a historian. Wait, and I've caught up to the chat. Kiara, hello. Good to see you. Johnny, that was a secret just between you and me. We weren't supposed to spread it. Let me see. Sorry, I had to do that. I'm sorry. Yeah. Hassan, Harry, be nice. What topics makes you happy these days? I think anytime I'm able to learn about a new type of history that I haven't learned about or learn a new part of history that I didn't know as much as I used to, that makes me happy. I think there's a lot to be happy about that. And I'm always happy to talk to you guys. So, anyways, and I've actually done something remarkable. I've caught up to the chat. So if you have a topic or question about history, drop it in the chat. Is an invention just a discovery? It's a way to apply a discovery. I'm trying to collect antiques. If you donate to the channel, if you become a member, if you watch and give us ad revenues, all the money that goes into this channel, we either go towards antiques, but also to updating the technology of this channel, making the channel more accessible, more enjoyable for all of you guys. I'm Israeli and we love Russia. We have 30% of people from Russia here. And a lot of Arabs. Do you love the Arabs? Or you have Palestinians who live in Israel too. Do you think Russia attacked Ukraine because they scared NATO would be next to Moscow by Ukraine joining NATO? Yes, but also the fear of them putting nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Russia always has had the psychological fear throughout its history of being encircled by their enemies, whether it's the Mongols, the Poles, the Swedes, the Germans twice, or of course the United States. And they see the Ukraine as an extension of the European NATO system, which is an extension of the United States. So their old Cold War demons are coming back to haunt them. I am not trying to justify their invasion of Ukraine, But I am trying to say that you have to understand, regardless of what you think of Putin, Zelensky, Trump, whatever you think about any of these figures, or Biden, or the geopolitical situation right now, you will not do yourself any favors if you do not understand the history of this. Ukraine, for most of its history, was controlled by the Russians. That's a fact. Here's another fact. The first earliest society in that area that the Russians claim is theirs was Ukrainian, the Kievan Rus. You cannot, if you watch my videos where I talk about the Kievan Rus, I talk about their origins of Russian and Ukrainian culture. So you have a shared culture, you have a shared history, you have a very similar geography, you have a very similar religious background, you have this Eastern Orthodox commitment, you have the fact that Ukraine was part of Russia from the late 1600s all the way until 1954, when a Ukrainian, Nikita Khrushchev, became the leader of the Soviet Union. And one of the first things he did to show how nice he was compared to Stalin was give the Crimea to Ukraine, interestingly enough. But actually, Ukraine was one of the socialist Soviet republics as part of the Soviet Union and didn't get its full independence until 1991. So there's something to understand there. I am not saying any of that justifies the actions of the Russians or means the Ukrainians don't have a right to their land. But you've got to understand that the Russians see anyone getting close to them who has been a historic enemy as dangerous to them. Great question, though. White Revolutionary Army and the Czech Brigade talking about American interference. Yes, very true. But Czechoslovak Legion in the Russian Civil War. Fascinating stuff. Russia is evil propaganda in Hollywood films. Your Saudi brother. Can you tell us what happened to the Aztecs? The vast majority of them that died actually died from disease. Many others were killed off. Some were enslaved. But basically, Cortez rallied a group of different native tribes that have been continually enslaved, and many of them sacrificed and killed by the Aztecs to overthrow them. What are your thoughts on the Holocaust? The Holocaust, I mean, what are my thoughts? I mean, I guess you want me to say if I think it's real? Yes, I think it's real. I think it happened, and I think that between 9 to 11 million people died. 5 to 6 million of them were Jews. The rest were homosexuals, communists, Slavic peoples, people with mental disabilities, and the like. And yes, there are Christians in Palestine. The historical land wars of the New Zealand Maori, not a question, a very tribal time indeed. When Captain Cook arrived, the Maoris were pretty much cannibals. Yes, I'm trying to remember the Hawaiians killed him. I don't believe they cannibalized him, though. I'm trying to remember, but he was killed and dismembered by the Hawaiians. I think it was the Hawaiians, or was it the Tahitians? It was one of the others. I think it's the Hawaiians. It's not being wrong. It's a disagreement between something that is purely subjective, so it's not being owned. Harry, just don't take it personally. Forget it. Just do what I do. Just be passive-aggressive in the way you respond. Is mathematics continuously discovered, or is it invented? I think that when you discover something and you discover a way to fix something, that's an invention. So the Pythagorean theorem is an invention. It's a discovery about how to do math in a certain way, but that mathematical concept was already there. No, I do not support war. Not generally. Although there are times, obviously, when war makes a lot of sense, like against the Nazis or the Confederates. Why Russia supported the Syrian regime? Russia was close to dictators like to get on the same side as each other, and so that was Putin and that was Assad. And basically the hope from Putin is that Iran and Syria would create a Russian sphere of influence in the Middle East. The Soviet Union had closer ties to many of these to different dissident groups in the Middle East, hoping to undermine the influence of the United States and its proxy state, Israel. What do you think of the Bussi agreement signed between South Africa and Iran? Is that recent? Is that just a cooperative agreement? I don't know a huge amount about it. If USA leaves NATO, would it be a more peaceful place? No, NATO was created by, I don't see the United States leaving something it created just to stop the Russians, which is literally what they're trying to do now. Did Ukraine exist before the war? Yes. Again, Ukraine ties itself to the Kievan Rus of the 9th and 10th centuries, just like Russia does. What about the massacre of Ukrainians in the early 1900s? Well, that's the Holodomor. That's the Soviet Union killing Ukrainian farmers, collectivizing them, and stuff like that. Thank you, Hollywood. I appreciate that. Let me see here. A lot of Adderall, probably. Am I single? I don't share my personal background, but thank you, I guess. I am an American. I don't share exactly where I am in America. What about one of the oldest churches? Men go through a lot about at a certain age. Yeah, which certain age is that? How about all of their ages? Thank you for enjoying the stream, Al. It's great to have you here. Is it contrarian justified to look back at the Russian Civil War as a modern historian and trying to justify the White Russians? I think that the Russian peasantry voted with their feet. They didn't like the Reds, but they certainly didn't like the Whites abusing them, stealing their areas, abusing their women, and doing all sorts of horrible things, pogroms and persecutions. And they basically kind of defaulted to supporting the Reds and not supporting the Whites. But no, you should look back on that and see if it was justified for the White Russians to try to fight the Bolsheviks. Given what the Bolsheviks and the Communist Party did in Russia, I would not be opposed to someone trying to justify the efforts of the White Russians in the Civil War to defeat the Bolshevik Party led by Lenin and Trotsky. What do you think of my top 3 worst presidents list? Woodrow Wilson, Andrew Johnson, James Buchanan. I think the worst presidents, and you can go watch my tier ranking video on this where I give a full explanation, Harsh, so you don't have to keep asking me. I think Buchanan's the worst. I think Andrew Johnson is close. After that, there's a little bit more, but I think those two are clearly at the bottom. A lot of people want to put Warren Harding there. I'm not as hard on him, or Grant, or Nixon, or Biden, or Trump. It's way too early for us to judge Biden and Trump's presidencies, by the way. George W. Bush, Jimmy Carter, they're going to be near the bottom of the barrel. I don't know who I would put third. Woodrow Wilson's a definitely overrated president. I don't know if he's quite that low. Definitely a lot of problems. Hawaiian Islanders, otherwise known as the Friendly Isles. Yeah. Yes, encouraging passive aggressiveness is wild. You should see the passive aggressiveness I get on this channel, Aaron, or AA Ron. George W. Bush is definitely a candidate for one of the worst presidents. Haven't played Halo 3. I think I played it a little bit. I'm more of a Call of Duty guy, but yeah. Sir, is that story about Jessica Radcliffe true? Which one? What do you think about Building 7 during 9/11? I don't buy any of the theories that the government did 9/11. Or that it was the CIA, or that they knew, or that somebody put bombs in there. I don't buy any of that. Do you have knowledge about the Balkans? Southeastern Europe a lot of its states gained their independence in the beginning, late 19th, early 20th century. Some of this led obviously to Serbia, Bosnia, that whole issue. The Austro-Hungarians taking over Bosnia angered the Serbs. This eventually led to Archduke Franz Ferdinand being killed in the beginnings of what you call World War I, what I call World War II. Also, fun fact, the Bulgarians were the first ones to ever have a czar, and they had an empire in the Balkans that was actually, throughout much of the 10 and 1100s, better than the Byzantines. The countries that interest me the most are Russia, also because of its complex and turbulent history, and Persia, which has such a rich, intricate past full of culture and empire building. I love both of them. They're fascinating places. The more I learn about Persia, the more impressed I'm with it. Which covenant, Borgi? The colonization of Australia resulting in the decimation of native Aboriginals, leading to Darwin suspecting that they were indeed a good candidate for the missing link, leading to the beheading of hundreds. Yep. You get the roots of cultural Darwinism and paternalism, and it leads to horrific consequences for the native populations. Do you know what star was as? Sure. The idea was already there. So math in its entirety exists already, and humans are simply discovering it in chunks. People like Euler, Einstein, Newton, Leibniz, they're discovering things that already were working. Take Newton. The UV spectrum was already there. He just identified it. The United States always portrays themselves as innocent, hardworking, helping protect the world, while they are actually the biggest fraud and provocate war. Yes, and a lot of the time they have. Look at the Middle East, for example. Isn't it debatable about how some people's, I don't know, how powerful someone is purely subjective? Napoleon was more powerful than the Holy Roman Emperor that he overthrew. Let's not get too far here. Is the U.S. going to invade Canada? No, they may try to buy it. So I know a lot of people think Trump is an absolute idiot for doing the 51st state, and I think it's probably just trolling. If it's serious, it is idiotic. But I will say this. Canada is not looking too sharp. I love Canada. I love Canadian history. I love talking about Canada. I mean no disrespect to people like Ryan, who's a longtime friendly neighborhood historian. Canada has its problems right now. They're in economic decline. They're having issues, just like the rest of the Western world, with dealing with migrant populations. There's a lot of question marks for Canada's future. And its economic development is slow. Cost of living, cost of housing, affordable housing. Things are getting difficult for the Canadians. And so I don't have anything against Canada. I love Canada. The only situation I could ever see Canada being annexed by the US is if the US bought Canada and by basically absorbing it or sections of it while buying off the rest of its debt. Not going to happen. Almost as idiotic as the 51st state. Scott and Amundsen and their race to the South Pole, resulting in Scott's death 60 miles from his goal, his men dying on the ice too. Yep, that's a crazy, crazy race. United States always portrays themselves as innocent. Yes, you already said that. Why would you want to put Grant at the bottom? I mean, his administration was corrupt because he trusted people. I'm saying other historians have put Grant at the bottom. A corrupt administration, Grant, Harding, and Nixon, always Republicans, by the way, almost always go at the bottom. I'm just saying that. But Grant, and to be fair, there are plenty of corrupt Democratic presidencies, but Bill Clinton's presidency, which has been considered corrupt by many, isn't considered a completely broken bottom of the barrel presidency. Grant's failure to enact successfully the Reconstruction efforts to bring racial harmony and civil rights to America, when he absolutely was in a position to do that in 1869 and America was totally falling off that track by 1877, really is a huge impediment to his presidential legacy. The reason he wasn't able to do it was because his administration was so dang corrupt. He himself was actually a noble and upstanding guy, but he trusted too easily and didn't know how to judge people correctly, and that's why you had Crevette Mobilier, you had the risky ring, you basically had 4 or 5 scandals all the time happening. Ulysses S. Grant is the only U.S. president to be a witness in a trial because of how corrupt some of the people he knew were. But Grant, some historians have put him near the bottom, but in the last couple decades, more and more historians have warmed up to Grant. I have a moderate view about Grant. I like Ulysses S. Grant as a person. I do not like his presidency. I love you too, mayonnaise, but you never put mayonnaise on a hot dog. You put ketchup. The covenant is ours, and it's only extended to Gentiles because of Yeshua. Okay, then. Battlefield was cool until EA effed it up. I love Battlefield, the Battlefield games, but Battlefield 2 was awesome, S. Burns. In what ways did the Soviet state conspicuously adopt, repurpose, or suppress pre-revolutionary Russian cultural symbols and narratives to legitimize its rule? It destabilized the state. It basically stripped all of its wealth and power. It tried to get rid of the currency, create a new architectural system that took out all of the ancient historical artistic designs that the Russians were known for. Creating churches was obviously a huge thing. You've got St. Basil's and stuff like that. They tried to defang that entire process. Government did 9/11. See, I don't agree. I think that's out there, but I respect anyone's willingness to believe in that, and if they've got evidence for it, then I'm more than willing to hear it. So S. Burns, you're not going to get censored for believing that. I don't censor people. I'm a free speech absolutist here. Do you think Walter Jr. could take Thanos in a fight? Walter Jr. from Breaking Bad? No, but Walter could. George Bush was a populist, and I think it's his most B tier due to response to the 9/11, his leadership through Iraq and the Great Recession. He caused the Great Recession. He messed up the Iraq War. He bungled Afghanistan after succeeding there. He was wrong about the WMDs. He was wrong about where Osama bin Laden was. His presidency was really bad. It's kind of, I see him as the Republican version of Jimmy Carter. A well-meaning guy who wanted to do good for the world, who just didn't know how to do the job. What country do you think has the most underrated history? Russia, but India is really cool. What about the Croatians? What about them? I've got a bust of Trump at home. Obviously, he's a good president. Some people say the best president. A lot of people say it. None has ever seen a better president. Oh, I should have read that before. I could have done my Trump impression. Flemish history? The Flemish are, it's not quite just the Dutch, but it's the Dutch, it's the Belgians, it's the people from Luxembourg. It's that area. It used to be called Flanders, between Germany and France. Would be fascinated by your own history. I don't share too much about it, Stone Raider. I try to keep my personal stuff out of this. It was a penal island. That's what he put. Yes, that's true. That's what they did with Australia. I don't know about the Nephilim, but there was a lot of people saying he invaded because of oil. I think Bulgaria honestly has some of the coolest history. It does. Maybe that one's underrated. I'd say there's a lot of Eastern European countries that are underrated. African countries are certainly underrated in their history. There's a lot of crooks nooks and crannies in the world. It's always Southeast Asia, Southeast Europe, the Balkans. We don't talk enough about this stuff. And I'd say we do talk about Russia probably more, so they're probably more underrated than Russia. What is your take on Roanoke Colony? I think the natives killed him. Powhatan seemed to think claimed that he killed them. I don't think Croatan means anything. Yeah, Bulgaria is really cool. Mutiny on the Bounty, Robert Louis Stevenson staying Tahiti with the hula girls. It's not Robert Louis Stevenson, it's Fletcher Christensen. You let Cook sailed away. Yep. I mean, considering he sent the vice president to Greenland against the wishes of the Danish government, the local governments, and also used time. Harry, I really don't care what you think about Trump. I mean, I know that I know what you're going to say about it. I don't really care that he sent his vice president there. Bro, you speak much better than all the blood-sucking journalists out there. Thank you. You should check out my daily news clip, because in a minute, I'm able to hopefully be as objective and thoughtful and informative as possible without giving any spin. I can't cover everything, but it's only a minute long, but I cover a bunch of stuff that's happening around the world, and I don't use adverbs and adjectives. What is your favorite topic in regards to Southeast Asia, a place we hardly hear any news from? I love Thai history. I love looking at how Thailand never got officially colonized. Harry, Canada and Greenland are different entities. The Americans have tried to buy Greenland from the Danes twice and they haven't. I don't know if they're the best ally, to be fair. Canada is a Commonwealth country. King Old Mate and his family would need to be contacted. That's true. Not like the Americans care. I think Nixon got framed. A lot of people are starting to think that. That's becoming more and more popular, especially with all of the lawfare, as we call it, and accusations flying about different presidents. A lot of people are starting to talk about Nixon being framed. I don't think it. I see that as a conspiracy theory. I think Nixon did himself in because he was power hungry. But yeah, a lot of people think that. Bulgaria got 25% of their 4 million people to fight in World War I. The Bulgarians would literally be some of the best fighters in the wars they fought and still lost. Yes, and they did well in that war. They knocked out Romania basically on their own. They made life hard for the Greeks. They stood their own against the Russians. It's pretty impressive. Canada is a Commonwealth realm and Commonwealth country, not just a Commonwealth. Okay. Since you are a historian, what is something sad or bad you see commonly among all U.S. presidents? Almost every U.S. president has failed to live up to every one of his promises, which means they should stop promising so much. Is California strong enough to seek independency? Independence? No. That's not what they're doing. They're trying to get their own congressional map redrawn so that they can cancel out the gerrymandering in Texas, so that they can cancel out Republican gains in the House of Representatives, and hopefully the Democrats retake the House of Representatives, is their strategy. I don't like Grant. He was a drunk and thought he was above the law. He didn't obey traffic laws at all. That's true, but that's such small that he did get a ticket for that. Don't put ketchup on a hot dog if you're over 25. Okay, then. Right, in fact, America is the only country in the 80 years of NATO history to enact Article 5. That is definitely true, Johnny. They did it with Iraq. Victoria, hello. Actually, I'm turning away from ketchup because it's just loaded with sugar. That's where all the flavor comes from. I like mustard, though, especially grape of palm. That stuff's amazing. America is the only country in history to have an orange president nobody laughs at. Nobody laughs at? I thought a lot of people laughed at him. Alec Guinness or Ewan McGregor? Alec Guinness. I'm a historian. I gotta go back in history here. Do your Joe Biden impression? I've had a Joe Biden impression. I haven't done it. I don't impersonate these guys that much. How much of an opinion do you have on world over governance, inherited political regimes? You know, it doesn't matter who, they all play the same game, deep state thing. It's an interesting thing that's developing. It's the black pilling of culture. It's common amongst men. It's common amongst young men my age, where they voted, a lot of them in America, for instance, voted for Trump and think that Trump will save them. And then when Trump doesn't do every single last thing they want, they turn on him. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous. That's so unfair. And that has happened to every group of people. They've been disappointed by their leaders at one time or another. That's going to happen. You're going to be disappointed by your political leaders, even if they do mostly the things that you want. So if I give you a grocery list and I give you 10 things on it, and you get 7 out of the 10, do I complain that you missed 3, or do I celebrate that you got 7? By the way, this is not an endorsement whatsoever of any political candidate. I'm just saying that a lot of people are black pilling and starting to believe that really no matter what happens, we're ruled by our society, whether it be the American or the British, the French, the Russian. They're all a conglomerate of people working together to control the world. There might be some truth to that, and that there's people behind the scenes who want to control a lot of people, but I don't know if it's, I'm kind of moderate about it. I don't think they control everything. Hey, Eric, great to see you. I'm still working on that Industrial Revolution video. I will get that out, but probably not till Monday now. I can't even begin to think what Lisa went through after being harassed by this channel to take down this YouTube short she made. You need to apologize to her. Who? Lisa Simpson? Sorry, Lisa Simpson. Bart's funnier. The wishes of the Danish government and the devolved government, and then used his time in Greenland against the wishes of both governments to go and bash the Danish government. That's like the most American thing ever, I have to say. I'm not saying it's a good thing, and there's many reasons to criticize it, but that's the most American thing ever. Go to a country against their will, do what you want in the country, and then insult the country while you're there. It's Andrew Jackson in Florida all over again. There's a reason Trump has Andrew Jackson's bust in his, or painting in his Oval Office. The Commonwealth still exists. It just doesn't, it exists in the sense that there's mutual defense pacts. There's obviously a fealty to the British government, but there's political autonomy for areas like Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. Tayyib, good to see you. Eric, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being part of this channel. You are what makes the channel great. And like I say, if you want to be a friendly neighborhood historian, all you have to do is like and subscribe. South Africa and Iran have entered into a clandestine defense agreement referred to internally as the Bilateral Unified Strategic Systems Initiative, BUSI. They should change the name of that. Interesting. Not surprised at all. South Africa's been very heavy in attacking Israel on its actions in Gaza, and obviously Iran is all for it. But it's also part of the entire BRICS thing. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa trying to create their own sphere of influence in Africa and Latin America and Asia, and also doing what they can to unite against the Trump administration in particular and the US dollar in general. Afghanistan, that's right. Ethiopia is one of the most underrated histories, in my opinion. They understand trading for guns was more important than anything, and that saved them from colonialism. Absolutely. And they maintained their independence by playing the Europeans off of each other and by having some of the best leaders like Menek II and Haile Selassie. The Commonwealth is still going with 54 members still in it and has been expanding recently, not shrinking. What are your thoughts on the Palestine-Israel conflict? I think the war needs to end. I think that the Palestinians probably at this point, I think they get their own state in West Bank. Israel pays to rebuild Gaza. The Gazans eventually settle in there and they do not put Hamas in power. And I think that is a fair enough settlement. I think that sounds fair. I don't think it's crazy. Who knows what Gaza might be occupied by the Gulf states for a while. We'll see. I don't know. But that's my best guess. And I'm a historian. I look at this through the historical lens. I look at the atrocities done by both sides. I look at the Palestinians' unwillingness to let the Israelis originally live in that area. And I look at the Israelis willing to use violence and subterfuge at the worst possible moments to hurt their international image. And that's what they're doing. They've got a tunnel vision like nothing. And I can understand some of it because they feel that they are always existentially threatened. If they stop the fighting right now, they will not lose Israel. Don't ask Australia tomorrow. The colonies are convicts, potato blight refugees. The Kofers were sketchy before common establishment. Very true. No worries, you did not miss it, Eric. I'm probably gonna. I could do, like shotgun it, but I want to give you more detail. So I'm gonna wait till Monday and upload a compilation today. And then Monday, you guys should have it. It's my video on the Industrial Revolution, which Eric, because he's donated and helped the channel, he got to pick a video. So if you donate and help the channel, you can pick a live stream lecture or a video. I will gladly do that for you. Hello, Jeff. Why did Serbia attack Croatia, Bosnia, and then Albania? Was that recently? I know Serbia and Kosovo had something. Those areas have been destabilized ever since the fall of the Soviet Union, and pretty much over the last century have been going through ups and downs. Americans must be French because that sounds very French to me. Let me see here. Play buckish music. It will make you happy. I will try. Effie, I will take your suggestion. I seriously cannot see you harassing someone. That's offensive. I don't care. People on the internet say anything they want. I don't think that I'm that kind of person, and I think everybody here knows that. Pravda, great to see you. Truth is here. Since the closure of the American Daily Worker in the 1950s, only communist newspaper. Is there any hope for the USA going forward? I don't know if communism is the hope for the United States because it wasn't even the hope for the Soviet Union, who was communist at that time. Was the Mongol yoke more a period of oppression or a framework that shaped and strengthened the foundations of the Russian state? Definitely the former. In my opinion, Russia fell behind the Europeans at a vital moment. They were robbed of the late medieval boost that the Europeans got and didn't actually become their own princedom and principality in their own right until the beginning of the 1500s, when you already had the developments of the early modern world in Western Europe. Now, Eastern Europe was already behind this in a lot of ways, but if you look at Sweden, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and the things that develop around them, Russia is precipitously behind their Europeans, even the Eastern Europeans, until the late 17th and early 18th centuries. So I think it's a crutch that has hurt the Russians tremendously. It's held them back. They've had to catch up, and they've fallen back again. Yeah. Yeah, Johnny, I think you might have been trolling. It sounds like something they would do, though, to be fair. It's a good troll, if it's a troll at all. And while the British are the permanent resident of the Commonwealth presidency, doesn't really have any authority whatsoever. Yep, makes sense. Golden Age of the Netherlands was the best change my mind, VOC. Yeah, I have, oh, sorry, knocked over my cable. Yeah, I guess that's me holding the phone for a Lamar edit. Golden Age is pretty great. I've got I've got a couple of videos on this channel and a live stream lecture where I talk about the Dutch Golden Age. Fascinating times. I want to believe that's real. Did Texas invent barbed wire? I've heard that before. I don't think so. Israelis are just European Jews who came to the Middle East. That's not true. It's just not. There's about 2 million Arabs who live in Israel. There's a huge number of Mizrahim Jews. The Ashkenazi Jews who were there were some of the first there who were Jewish, who lived in that area in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. By about 1948, 1949, there's a large contingent of Mizrahim Jews. There's a large contingent of Jews from all over the world who live in that area. Who live in that area. I think that might have been it. Serbia and Bosnia going to war because of Islam, which would make sense because Albania is also Muslim. Croats being Romanian, being Roman Catholic, Serbs, Eastern European. Yep, there's also that religious divide, which has led to plenty of fighting, like I mentioned, the Fourth Crusade, where the Catholics and Byzantine Orthodox Christians were very happy to kill each other. Do you believe Trump will help negotiate a peace treaty or ceasefire in Ukraine? Thanks for streaming. Good to see you, Texas. I think so. I do think that there's probably going to be something. I think they're going to agree to a framework and then throw it to the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians will not like it. I don't think even the Russians will love everything about it. But I think that the Ukrainians are under a lot of pressure now. It would be hard. We'll see if the U.S. can get Ukraine and Russia to the table next week. In my opinion, if they can get them to the table next week, that will prove that Zelensky is willing to basically end the war. We'll see. I don't know. Check out my daily news updates for more. Remember when Israel attacked a U.S. Navy ship and said it was an accident? Yes, I remember that. Everybody remembers it because everybody brings it up every darn time I stream on this, and I always answer and I always say it was terrible. Yes, I remember very well. I also remember all of the other crap that all of the Middle Easterners did by expelling hundreds of thousands of Jews, targeting and killing Americans. I remember all of these things because I'm a historian and it's my job to remember the crap that everybody does to each other. I did not, Mercy. The genocide on Srebrenica, I have to look into that. Please tell me this isn't another troll. Could Italy become the new ex-Yugoslavia? I don't think so. I don't see them uniting a group of people like that. Yeah, the VOC was really rich. Who's there? And be proud of your Dutch blood. There's a lot of fascinating stuff in the history of the Netherlands, and I talk about it here on the channel a lot. If you look at Western Europe in the 17th century, I don't think there's a more expansive, wealthy, or creative society than the Dutch. You've got Rembrandt, you've got astronomy and anatomy, you've got the Dutch trading ships, you have the VOC, you have a settlement of Indonesia. The fact that the Japanese kicked out everyone except the Dutch is pretty impressive. Ferris Bueller says he doesn't subscribe to any isms. I think of this a lot. Communism, accelerationism, Zionism, communism. You said communism twice. As a historian on this channel, I have my own personal beliefs outside of this. I do not just walk around thinking this way about every single thing. I try to be as objective as I possibly can and think through everything as I possibly can. Some people, we're going to be stuck to isms. It's just part of who we are as humans. And you want to be part of the right ism or the wrong ism, you've got to think, or whatever ism you want to subscribe to or partially subscribe to, at least think it through. Johnny, the people, if I'm correct, the Palestinians were chanting death to the America after 9/11. Yes, Leona, I get it. The Jews bad. Got it. Make sure to like and subscribe for more. I'm done now doing Simon's job. Yes, you are. Thank you, Harry. It's the first time you've ever encouraged anyone to do anything positive to this channel. Albion is currently growing more secular Christian. I've heard that, but there's a large Muslim population. It's like 80%. Do you know Khalid ibn al-Walid is? Oh my goodness. I don't, the name sounds familiar. Isn't he one of the great generals? I'm trying to think. I think he was one of the generals who defeated the Christians, the Byzantines. Yeah. Arabs should get rid of the Western imperialism in their own country. That's a fair point. Could you set in some 2 words about the kingdom of the 2 Sicilies? Sicily's been divided many times. The Greeks were there, the Romans were there, the Carthaginians were there. You also, of course, have the fact the Muslims took it for a little while. The Byzantines controlled it. The Holy Roman Empire controlled it in the 16th century. I think the French even controlled part of it for a while. Okay. I believe you, Mercy. I will look it up. Can you please explain the difference between communism and socialism for any Americans in this chat? Which I've done for you several times. Okay, communism, interestingly enough, although it was created as an economic system by Karl Marx, which meant the redistribution of wealth, the abolishment of public property, the end of the factories, the end of private enterprise, it has become a cultural and political system that seeks to enact that economic form of government through collectivization and usually through force. And this has led to authoritarian dictatorships like in Russia and the Soviet Union and China and Cambodia and other places. Socialism is an economic system that demands the redistribution of wealth and land, the nationalization of private enterprise, and basically universal, meaning government-provided services for all the population, regardless of personal preferences, be things like healthcare, daycare, things like that. So basically universal government control over certain parts, over the certain economic areas. Whereas socialism sounds like it's a social idea, it's actually far more economic in its attempt to redistribute wealth, make the rich pay more, and seek to nationalize corporations. America gotta be the worst country. Everything they bring is destruction and support an apartheid state. I'm a bunch of cowards spreading billions to bomb children. Okay. You're entitled to your opinion. He was Christian, by the way. Interesting. About the independence of Texas from Mexico, how Texans have weapons to insurrection. They brought them with them. The Texans were well armed. Most people, any pioneers, were armed to one extent or another. Most of the arming of the Texans was from themselves. What's your opinion about Padane, legal mafia? Padane, I don't know enough about it, Fausto. I can't speak to it. I mean, the West created Arabia, so I don't know why they would. No, Arabia existed before then. The West created Saudi Arabia. You were right because I couldn't remember LOL, but it was Palestinian people who were chanting death to America after. I see your point now. Communism and socialism share commonalities in economic and political strategy, but one prefers privatized collectivism, the others basically. But one has a authoritarian structure of how to achieve redistribution of wealth and land, an abolishment of public property, and the end to all private enterprise. The other one doesn't quite go that far and does not usually use the compulsion of the state to do it. It can, but it doesn't always. And they were pretty much synonymous ideologies. Communism became far more forceful in the 20th century as opposed to socialism. And Harry, of course, is a huge Anglophile and is also a socialist. So he is a nationalist and he's a socialist. He is a national socialist. Oh, sorry, Harry. Socialism leads to communism according to Marx. That's what Marx wanted with his dialectical materialism. Challenge Charlie Kirk. I mean, I'm a young person on the internet, so I see a lot of these Charlie Kirk videos, and I love South Park and the Cartman thing. That was really funny. We would have an interesting conversation. I would love to speak, if this channel ever gets to those echelons, I'd love to talk to him on one side and Hassan Parker on the other. Actually, I should have used my left hand to say Hassan and my right hand to say Charlie. But yeah. Marx wrote his Communist Manifesto, and today was the cocktail bar, which I'm sure he would have wanted. Yes, because Marx was an alcoholic. Do you think conservative commentators have an accurate view of U.S. history? Do I buy the PragerU, bird cawing, flag waving American history? Certainly not. But I don't like. I mean, it's friendly history, as we say. I don't like this notion that everybody needs to feel bad about their history. There's a lot of terrible things in American history and things that shouldn't be overlooked. But 2 things. One, there's terrible things in every history. I'm not playing whataboutism. America needs to be responsible and talk about its failures. There's terrible things in every history, and two, it's the West, and the United States in particular, that have a passion and tradition of actually exposing its own fallacies historically. Other societies don't do that, which what I think makes American history unique is the ability to self-critique like no one else has. So yeah, and most Texans are very much still armed. Thanks to the West for creating my country. You're welcome. I don't know what flag that is. Is that the Saudi Arabian flag? Would it work to put 2% tax on every trade, even stocks and exchanges? They already do. It's called capital gains. It's an interesting idea, though. Frederick II of Svevia, King of Naples, and the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. Don't know a huge amount about that. I would have to look into that. Didn't we already establish that Harry is a walking contradiction? It's not a walking contradiction to be proud of your own country and to be a socialist. Communism definitely doesn't seem to have a high opinion of the countries that from which it stems from. I'm not a national socialist. I'm a socialist that has extreme amount of patriotism. There's a difference. What is the definition of nationalism again? Extreme love for one's country? I'm just saying, it's kind of weird. Do you think Britain would have went to war with America if they weren't dealing with Napoleon? They did. It's called the War of 1812, and they spanked Americans. I think Americans should be proud of their American history knowledge, no matter how divided you all are. It's inspirational, honestly. Yes, and the same to the Dutch, the same to the Indians. I think almost every single civilization and country in this world has the right to be proud in their history. There are terrible things in their histories, and they all should acknowledge it, but they should all acknowledge the good along with the bad. One of the people on this channel that always makes an amazing impression on me, I forget who it was, but he's sometimes here in the live streams. He's constantly commenting on the videos, which I hope you all do if you guys like the content I produce. Watch the long forms every Monday and Friday at 8 and the short form every day. But he says, can't we just be positive? And maybe that's what we're doing here at Friendly Neighborhood History. Maybe we're giving a more positive spin. I'm going to talk about bad stuff if you ask about bad stuff, but I'm also going to talk about good things that happened. Differences between socialism, communism, and market liberal socialism. Market liberal socialism is kind of like what you have in the Scandinavian countries, where you have a huge social welfare net, but you also a huge safety net, social safety net, but you also have a lot of economic liberty, a lot of economic capitalism. I'm not a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. My country literally spent 6 years being bombed to stop the Nazis. Yes, I know you're not a Nazi. I just think it's funny. I'm just ribbing you. Limited government that focuses only on America is the way to go. Thank you. I thought you were busy in your talks with Mr. Putin, Mr. Trump, but thank you for joining the chat. President Trump is here, and he knows how to use lowercase words. So why Texas did not want to be a country, and why be part of U.S. Federation? They went to be their own country because the U.S. didn't want to let them in, because Van Buren didn't want another slave state in the country. He's the only major Democratic president of that era to stand against slavery, by the way. But he wanted Texas. He didn't want Texas in the Union because he didn't want more Democratic representation in the Congress and in the Senate. Good. I'm glad they shut them down. And Harry, if you were a Nazi, you'd still be welcome here, because everybody should be allowed to express their opinions no matter what their opinions are. I allow communists to express their opinions, and communism killed tens of millions of people. I will absolutely fight tooth and nail against Nazi ideology. But if somebody has some of those views, they should be allowed to have them, express them, and then have their opinions pounded to the pavement. Yeah. Yeah, you can. There's plenty of British Nazis. Any particular U.S. president who'd been the victim of an assassination attempt who you thought had it coming? Ooh. I hate to say this because I love him, but Lincoln, it's foreseeable that Lincoln would have gotten killed. I don't think any of the other presidents who got shot you can see coming, but Lincoln, you could understand Southern dissidents angry about the war would hunt down and kill Lincoln. Is it a coincidence Democrats always want to introduce more taxes? You mean like tariffs? Oops. The Republicans are the party of tariffs, from Benjamin Harrison to Herbert Hoover to Donald Trump. Even Abraham Lincoln liked tariffs. I'm pretty sure that we would all watch a video if you did tests or quizzes about history or geography. That'd be fun. I should do that. Once I get a new, nicer laptop, I can do screencast again, and we'll get into that. Please reframe how you said that I'm not a National Socialist. I'm saying that you're a nationalist and you're also a socialist. He can keep up with history facts so fast. Respect, man. Bones, respect to you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Long live capitalism. Yes, income inequality is great for people. Does a normal society sort of depend on a working class that pays a lot of taxes or is miserable to support upper classes? Or can we have true socialism within ensured basic needs like rent and food? I mean, the latter sounds really nice. People strive for it. They might be able to come up with some concoction or cocktail of that works. But really, I kind of go with the Pareto principle. There's always going to be 20% of the people at the top. And they're going to be the most educated, the most powerful. They live in the best neighborhoods, and they look down on the plebeians. It doesn't matter. It happened in every single human society. The fact that the Marx thought that you could get rid of it was probably his worst take. We were fighting a world war and still whipped the Americans first is why Britain... No, the Napoleonic Wars were not a world war. I'm sorry, we only have room for 3 world wars in this channel. And the First World War is the 7 Years' War, not the Napoleonic Wars. There's a party in Sweden that's nationalist with socialistically inspired economic policies. Yep, sounds about right. There's a problem with commenting on your videos. No, there isn't. Are you Jewish? No. Before talking history, people can get upset. Happy friendly there too, though. I can get upset too, especially when people ask me the same dang question they have 20 times in a row just to get the same answer. Other than history, politics, and economics, what's your favorite topic? I love philosophy. I love psychology. I love talking about religion. I love talking about these things. I'm one of those guys who stays up until 3 a.m. at the Denny's talking with his friends. I was like this in college about why are we here? What is the meaning of life? How does history connect to all of this? I was that guy. It's Saturday here. Happy Saturday to you. Perfect saying they need to accept the bad and the good. Americans did nothing good back then to the natives, but now it's all right for them. Huh? Okay. I'm a little confused by that. I think we should make... Okay. Nah, Mike, it's okay. I'm good, man. I'm going to vote against that. But 7 wolves and a sheep vote for dinner. The sheep's going to get eaten. Unless it is Trump and Wilson and me, and Hars goes nuts and hate on them. I meant like a full-on war between America and Britain if Napoleon wasn't being a big problem in Europe. Yeah, it would have been interesting to see how the Americans would have fared. I don't know if the British would have ever conquered them. They pretty much conquered them in the War of 1812. You're from the future? That's fantastic. No, they should not be allowed to have him. No one should be allowed to be a Nazi. Huh? Should people be allowed to be communists? Radical Muslims? Radical right-wing extremists that are not Nazis? White supremacists? Black supremacists? People should be allowed to have their ideas, even if they're wrong. As long as they are not inciting or creating violence, they're allowed to have those ideas. I'm a free speech absolutist, basically. That's why I will go onto this channel once a week and I'll go through all the comments people have made on the videos and I'll hear some disgustingly nasty things. I will be called some disgustingly nasty things and I'll approve it so that you can all see it, so that everyone can see it. Because A, if it's disgusting and nasty, it doesn't deserve to be hidden. That person deserves to have it shown that they're ignorant and stupid. And B, even if they're being insulting, they may make a good point or they may make an argument that is interesting. Just because you use dirty, nasty words sometimes doesn't mean you can't make a good argument. So I don't have a problem with people. So once a week, twice a week, I go through this channel, I look at comments that have been blocked, and I'm like, that's dumb. And they're almost always political. So I was like, Biden is the worst, bleep, 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 or Trump is the worst, bleep, 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 bleep. And I'm like, that's stupid. Don't report comments like that. Let people express their ideas. Let them show their bad vocabulary of all their 4-letter words. I don't care about any of that. I care about people being able to express their ideas in a free-flowing manner as long as they're not inciting violence or trying to create disaster or threatening people. That is perfectly fine. And on the internet, threats are as empty as the wind. So, and there has never been a true communism because you cannot have a communist state. Oh God, that's not true. There's never been a true, fully communist society, but I would say Stalin was a communist. I'd say Lenin was a communist. I would say Mao is a communist. Yeah, Woodrow Wilson literally had his wife run the country. That's true. Do you believe a two-party system is a good representation of true democracy? I think like democracy, it's the worst system around except for all the others. Coalition governments are very difficult, and usually you get one political party pulling a lot of strings, although there is more representation of precise ideas in parliamentary systems like they have in Germany or in Israel. What do you think JFK, why do you think JFK was killed? He refused to elevate America's influence in Vietnam, and I believe the CIA did kill him. Bale, that's fair. You're allowed to do that, but you have to be willing to do that, and not everybody is willing or able to do that. That's the issue people have. Kind of, yeah. I like the decorations of your grandma's house. Funny, it's not my grandma's house, but okay. I like the antique lamp, and I stand by that lamp. Why do Democrats and Republicans disagree on everything except Israel? Coincidence? They don't really disagree on. They don't really agree on Israel right now. Let me see here. I know China has communism, have a war outside their borders. I know the insular Japanese attempt, but apart from building the wall to keep out the hordes, Chinese wartime fighting out of China. China invaded, the Mongols did a lot of that. They invaded the Dai Viet, they failed there. China has obviously seized Tibet in the 1960s. China has attacked sovereign countries several different times throughout their history. And China has fought with Russia at certain points. Why are we here? You're here to hopefully learn something about history and like and subscribe. Why are we here on Earth? To figure out why we're here. Maybe the real goal of humanity is to figure out why there is humanity. See, I think you're trolling Harry by calling him a National Socialist, but he is indeed a nationalist and a socialist. I don't think they are the same thing. Of course they aren't. I meet at 3 a.m. Where are you going to go? Or Waffle House. Waffle House, good. Nazi equals being a little socialist and liking your country and wanting to see it better. I also hate the dilution of the term Nazi, where everyone who is right-wing is Nazi. Now everyone is a Nazi, which means it loses all of its meaning, and the real teeth Nazis feel legitimized. That's terrible. I don't know the Lancastria disaster. Historical what if? What if Lincoln had lived? I think history would have been a lot better. If we wouldn't have been fighting, the Napoleonic America would have got it handed to him on a silver platter. Yep, probably. Lots of immigrants in Scandinavia are anti-immigrant. The ones who integrate with the country and culture dislike those who don't. Any idea? I've heard about that. Any idea on why they feel the need to vote against their countrymen? Because they feel an allegiance to the country they emigrated to, probably, would be my guess, Frantic. I'm assuming you're from Sweden or Scandinavia, so thank you for joining us. Yes, workers of the world unite. Good to see you, James. The only opinion that I believe we should silence is anyone supporting. Yes, I agree with that, Bale. That is disgusting, and should anyone who support. I'm not going to sanction that. Fortunately, thank God, I've never had somebody support the abuse of children on this platform, and I certainly won't platform that. Stalin did well, worse than Hitler. If it was a competition, I'm just saying. Yes, radical right-wingism should be allowed. We had 15 years of lame woke. The pendulum, it'll swing back is the problem. You're right-wingers are happy right now because they've got the reins in the United States. Those reins will go back to the left, and the left will probably have vengeance like there's no tomorrow because they absolutely despise everything Trump has done. Like it, hate it, that's the reality. The Third Reich resided in Dunedin, New Zealand for years. Interesting. People at Thanksgiving are like, oh, bless what we got. Let's watch some football. Yes. Very American. Tim, why do you look like a B4? Because I'm trying to look like you, man. In today's modern era, what makes it a history event? What council decide to be in the history books? That's a good point. I think it's the significant events that pull our attention and obviously start to have impact on the global scale. So the 2024 election is the most immediate thing we can think back to in the U.S. I think I'm trying to catch up to the chat, and I don't think I'm going to do it, guys. I'm going to have to call it. We're 76 minutes in. Let me see. Is there anything? Let me see here. Do a backflip. No, I'm good. Carthage was Punic was the Roman word for Phoenician. That's why they called them that. Why would I talk about that? Because, yeah, why would I? That's a good point. People are asking if I would allow any type of speech, and that's one I certainly would not. When will West Asia and East Africa achieve complete peace? I used to think it would be in my lifetime. Now I'm not so sure. R's and D's both love Israel. It's just the modern Zoomer hippies hate Zionism and love Palestine, so smart D candidates like Harris Abu Jacob. That's fair, but also the right is turning on Israel in a big way. We weren't meant to stay on this planet. We were meant to explore the stars. That'd be fun. Politics have no relation to morals. No, they just have total relation to immorality. Carthage worship Baal. Yep, that's true. What do you think of the Carthaginians sacrificing their babies to the god of plant fertility? I don't know if the Carthaginians did that. I know the Phoenicians did. I don't know if they carried that practice into North Africa. Residential school only ended a little. Yeah, the residential schools were terrible for the Native Americans. Thanks, Robin. Was Carthage Hellenistic? Or they? No. They had some influence, but they were their own special creation, to be fair. And they were quite superior. They had their own superiorities and their own ways of interest before and during the Greeks and before the Romans. So, there will never be peace. Yeah, that's what a lot of people think. So yes, follow us on Instagram, friendly_history1. Thank you so much, Bones. I really appreciate that. I believe they did because Hannibal's dad almost sacrificed him to Baal and said he didn't conquer Rome. Interesting. I'm going to have to look more into this. That'd be fascinating to find out if there was the Phoenician. It would make sense, but yeah. Thank you for telling me about that, Baal. I always appreciate having you there, you here. Children begin by loving their parents. As they grow older, they judge them. Sometimes they forgive them. Yep. Okay, the summit between Trump and Putin I just saw highlighted. I don't know if there's any sort of peace agreement. We'll find out more about that. Check out my news update on that. But of course, you've got all the history stuff. I do daily history videos, Born Today, Die Today, and What Happened Today. I'm doing my Russian history series. I've got my full-length video on the Industrial Revolution coming out on Monday at 5 Pacific, and today. Yeah. Okay, so so I got another headline. Putin is not changing any of his outlook on Ukraine. So maybe nothing's going to come of it. So who knows? Maybe it was a nothing burger. So I'm just looking at my headlines. That's why I'm reading them out loud. But yes, join us tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. We'll do another hour of Q&A. I've got my long form video coming out later tonight. I think you guys will all enjoy. Another one on Monday, and my daily content videos, including my news updates for those of you who seem to like geopolitics. And Anthony, that's funny, but that's not true. Do you think that Wikipedia is a good source? It's a good place to start, but not the best. Certainly not the best. Great to see you, Stryker. Rose scared to admit Jews killed Jesus. Jewish religious leaders demanded the death of Jesus. Yes. You think that Wikipedia? Yeah. Okay. Don't even add a project to source. Whatever. Thanks, I guess. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat. Take care. Great to see you all. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Become a friendly neighborhood historian. It's as easy as that. We will be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, for another hour of Q&A. Make sure to vote on the poll here on YouTube about what topic you'd like me to discuss for our live stream lecture on Sunday. Check out the content that we have dropping here all the time, and our social media is down there. I am also on TikTok, Friendly History. There's stuff there that's not here, and vice versa. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Friday evening. And remember, as always, I will see you again, and love history. Bye-bye now.